how the families celebrate in that way, and it's part of their tradition and their history. And then on last Friday night, is that when we went to see Paul Wilbur? If anyone has opportunity to go see Paul Wilbur on First Friday, because he's a Messianic Jew, so he brings in, as a Christian Jew, they still celebrate. His son wears the little and they're very genuine in their history, and they celebrate their history, but they also are Christians that believe in Jesus, and he's taking the word all throughout. Where's he going now?
Going back to Israel.
Is he going to Israel? So yeah, I was planning a trip in the fall where if you have extra $5,000, it'd be a great person to learn so much from, because of his just basic knowledge of the Old Testament, the area, and his music's good too. It's not,
you can listen to it on Pandora. His music.
Yeah. And mostly on YouTube you'll have some of it, even his corresponding. But it's so much when you're there, and everyone greeted us when we came to the door with Shabbat.
Shabbat.
So it was just good. Everything I've experienced this month, the only, to be honest with you, the only thing that sort of made me question what we were doing was I called the Jewish synagogue and talked with them. They didn't really take it very nice that I wanted to do this as a Christian or as a Pentecostal. They felt like it's theirs, and they wanted to keep it as their celebration. And I tried to explain that we're doing it to learn more about their celebration. And yes, of course, we believe in Jesus, and our Lamb is Jesus Christ. So, anyway.
Hey, I was just watching Paul Wilbur do Good Friday service, and when he talks about the significance of communion, it's on YouTube. Good Friday service this year by Paul Wilbur. Yeah, it's something.
It's good. I said it was powerful.
And there's another temple that if you'd like to go, and they always welcome you. They're really nice, and that's at Beth Israel, and it's over by Bay in the Bay Meadows area. And you've been there before? Yeah, I like going over there. I go whenever I can. But I usually go over there doing like Yom Kippur and Shabbat. Not Shabbat. Yeah. So I try to get over there like in September and October. If I don't go.
All right, we've got 12 o'clock now, so it's kind of hopefully we can move quickly with it, but and we'll continue. Let's go all the way through it, and then we'll have the dinner at the end. But at the point where you're supposed to break, I guess you could.
If everyone that has one would open up your booklet and you can follow along, because there is responsive reading, and the responsive reading is that which is in the bold print. Welcome to our Passover Sedar. Let us celebrate the Exodus from Egypt, God's redemptive liberation of Israel from slavery and spiritual misery. The purpose of this Sedar is to recall the dramatic and miraculous events that led to the Exodus from an ancient land of slavery. The Old Testament instructs us to meet when it declares, "And you shall tell your children on that day, saying, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt." Exodus 12:14. Passover starts with the lighting of 2 candles, accompanied by a blessing. It is traditionally done by the mother of the house to make ourselves ready. Let us keep silent to receive the Passover celebration in peace and quietness. So, with this being Miss Cookie's house, I would think it would be befitting for her
Okay.
to light the candles. And normally what would happen, because there will be multiple tables, the mother at each table would actually light the candle at each individual table. And while we're doing that, if we will read this in unison, the bold print. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to kindle the lights of the Passover holiday. I pray that the brightness of these lights may inspire us and bring spiritual joy and promise to all of us. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has brought us life and sustained us and enabled us to reach the season of joy. Amen. As Ms. Rosalind has so eloquently described and gave definition, we're going to go into a little bit more as far as the cedar symbols. The Feast of Freedom and Redemption, and recite the ancient story of Israel's redemption from the bondage of Egypt. The ritual is called Sedar, meaning order in Hebrew. The various parts of the cedar are symbolized on this special plate. The lamb bone. Here is the roasted shank bone of a lamb. In Hebrew, it is called the zorah. And if you would respond.
What is the significance of the shank bone of the lamb?
The roasted shank bone reminds us of the Paschal lamb, a special animal sacrifice which our ancient ancestors offered on the altar of the great temple of Jerusalem on the Passover holiday. The egg. In Hebrew, it is called Beister.
What is the significance of the egg?
The egg is a reminder of the roasted egg offered at the temple of Jerusalem at the Passover festival. The bitter herbs, or horseradish, are called morah in Hebrew.
What is the significance of the bitter herb?
The bitter herb reminds us of the bitterness of slavery, which our ancestors were forced to endure. The horseradish. Here's a mixture of chopped apples, reminds us of the bitterness of slavery, which our ancestors were forced to endure. The horsed. Here is the mixture of chopped apples, cinnamon, nuts, and wine. It is called horsed in Hebrew.
What is the significance of the horsed?
The horsed reminds us of the mortar with which our ancestors made bricks from the building of Egyptian cities. The spring of parsley, called carpus in Hebrew.
What is the significance of the carpus?
The carpus is used to remind us that Passover coincides with the arrival of spring. We use it as a sign of gratitude to God for the goodness of the earth, for our bread and food. There are additional symbols on the cedar that we can see on the table. One of them is salt water, and the other is the dish with unleavened bread.
What is the significance of salt water?
It is symbolic of the bitterness of slavery and tears shed by our ancestors. It will be used to dip the parsley.
What is the significance of the second dish, which is wheat, matzah, and unleavened bread?
It commemorates the bread that our forefathers were compelled to eat during the hasty departure from Egypt. In addition, it represents the three patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. 4 times in the course of this ritual, we shall partake of wine or grape juice, symbol of joy and thanksgiving. The 4 cups represent the fourfold promise that God made to the Israelites in Egypt. In the following words, he assured them that they would be freed from servitude. Therefore say to the children of Israel, I am the Lord. I will free you from the burdens of the Egyptians and deliver you from bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of chastisement. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. Exodus 6, 6, and 7. Now the blessing of the wine or the grape juice. The first cup, the cup of blessing. At each of the table, as I said, there will be multiple tables, is filled and lifted up. And all stand, if you can, as the blessing is recited. Blessed are you, O Lord, our God, ruler of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe. You gave us this feast of unleavened bread in commemoration of our liberation from Egypt. You have chosen us for your service from among the nations, and have sanctified us by giving us your holy festivals as heritage. Blessed are you, O Lord.
And at that time, at the individual table, you would actually drink the grape juice or the wine. Now you can be seated. So Ms. Rosa, what do you drink? The washing of the hands. A pitcher of water, a bowl, and a towel are brought to the leader of the Sedar.
Are we going to go around?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Bowman, can you go around this way, please? And if you take the bowl, go around that one. Yes, ma'am. And if you, and Ms. Cookie, I need you to come over, please. And you can just stand right here. Ms. Robinson. Okay. Okay. I want you all to be able to see this. The pitcher of water, a bowl, and a towel are brought to the leader of the Sedar for the washing of hands. After he washes his hands, or she washes the hand, the pitcher and bowl and towel are removed. So, if you would just pour the water. I'll hold the bowl first. I'll hold the bowl.
You'll hold the bowl?
Yes, I'll hold the bowl. So everyone can see. If you would pour it. Yes. And Ms. Pauline, I need you all here. All the glory stand in front of the camera. No, I'm talking about get Donna Marie. And Ms. Pauline, if you would take this and the pitcher and the towel, please. Thank you. The next ceremony is eating the parsley. And at this time, we would actually dip the parsley in the salt water as we recite together. And we'll recite together. In eating this fruit of the earth, we give thanks to God for all his bounties. In tasting the salt water, we remember the tears shed while suffering the tortures of slavery. May our gratitude for the blessings we enjoy help soften the pain of sorrow and convert tears to joy and appreciation. And then at that point, we would eat the parsley. And be honest, it was actually very good. And then we will follow with the vocal print. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who created the fruit of the earth. And then we would have the drinking of the matzah. Just take one of them. And this is the matzah, the unleavened bread. In most pictures, it's showing bread that has yeast in it, which is not an accurate depiction of it because it's the season of unleavened bread. And this is actually very good.
And they break it.
And break it break it in the middle, and then you break the piece of it. And I would break the middle of, just as Ms. Roslyn said, the middle of the 3 matzahs, leaving one half on the table. The other half, the afikoman, is to be hidden and will be eaten after the children have found it in the desert time. The afikoman should be hidden somewhere in the parlor at this time, which we would not go through that part of it. The Passover story, the bread of affliction. And this is not on a plate, so I would just lift it up. And all of us, we will read in unison.
Lo, this is the bread of affliction, the humble and simple bread which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. It is a symbol of days of slavery and pain, endured by the Jewish people for centuries. It is a symbol also of the slavery and pain of so many in the world today. It is our hope that the next year we will be free. The next year humankind will be free of all oppressions.
And at this point, if we had a child, the child would open the door to welcome the hungry of body and spirit, which that part was so awesome, because it said we have to come to God as a child. And the symbolism of the child opening and welcoming, whereas some of us, when we get older, we become judgmental and hesitant or skeptical whether or not, if you don't look this way, if I don't dress this way, if I don't act this way, then I won't be received. But God, through the Passover, through this time, He says all are welcome. All are welcome. But that's not just through the Passover. It's until He returns. All are welcome to come into Him. And this is where this became more and more insightful for me, because it's an individual experience. And if we will all read together. Let all who hunger for bread and freedom come to partake, to celebrate the bread and freedom of this Passover celebration. And then at this point, we'll cover the matzah and close the door. And let's see who's going to be the child today. I need someone to be a child. Okay, we need 4 children. The child. Okay, Ms. John and Ms. Julie. The child asked the 4 questions.
On all the other nights, we eat either leavened or unleavened bread. Why on this night only matzah?
On all the other nights, we eat herbs of any kind. Why on this night only bitter herbs?
On all.
Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
On all other nights, we do not dip herbs even once. Why on this night twice?
On all other nights, our ancestors are sitting or reading. Why on this night did they all, recline? I thought that was a D.
I'm touched by your questions for the story of this night. It's just what I wanted to share with you. Indeed, this night is different from all other nights. Once we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord, in His goodness and mercy, brought us forth from the land with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. We, therefore, gather year after year to retell this ancient story. For in reality, it is not an ancient, but eternal in its message and its spirit. And various people can actually speak the following, one at a time.
Why do we eat only matzah tonight, when Pharaoh let our ancestors go from Egypt? They were forced to flee and not wait for the yeast to rise. So the sun beating down on the dough as they hurried along baked it into flat, unleavened bread called matzah.
And why do we eat the bitter herbs tonight? Because the Bible tells us that our ancestors were slaves in the land of Egypt, and their lives were made bitter by their oppressions.
Why do we dip the herbs twice tonight?
We dip the parsley in salt water because it reminds us of the green that comes to life in the springtime. We dip the bitter herbs into the sweet parasite as a sign of hope.
Why do we recline at the table tonight? Because reclining at the table was a sign of a free person in olden days. We follow the tradition of remembering that our ancestors were free on this night.
Blessed be God who keeps his promises and fulfills them in every age. Blessed be the Holy One who has saved his people from tyrants and tyrannies. Another participant.
The book of Deuteronomy states, my father was a wandering Aramean, and he went down to Egypt and sojourned there. He became a great and important community. The Egyptians dealt harshly with us and oppressed us. They imposed heavy labor upon us. Deuteronomy 26:5-6.
The book of Exodus confirms the story. It tells us that after Joseph died, a new Pharaoh arose who forgot what Joseph and his people had meant for Egypt. This Pharaoh enslaved all Israel and condemned all newborn males to death.
A child, a descendant of Levi, was saved by Pharaoh's daughter and reared in the palace. Later in life, he realized that he was a son of Israel and escaped to the desert. There in Oreb, God revealed himself at the burning bush and said, I am the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard their outcry against their slave masters. I have taken heed of their suffering and have come down to rescue them from the power of Egypt and to bring them out of that country into a fine, broad land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey. The outcry of the Israelites has now reached me. Yes, I have seen the brutality of Egyptians towards them. Come now, I will send you to Pharaoh, and you shall bring my people Israel out of Egypt. Exodus 3:6-10.
Let my people go. Another participant.
Moses pled with Pharaoh, who stubbornly refused to free the Hebrew slaves. God afflicted him with 10 plagues that left the people in the land desolate.
You don't have an empty glass. If you have an empty glass, that's okay. Then we would pour either wine or grape juice into that empty glass. We recall the 10 plagues by pouring drops of wine as we mention each of them. We do not pour the wine out of joy. According to an ancient Jewish tradition, we express our compassion for the suffering of the Egyptians. Although they were enemies and tormentors, they were also children of God and fellow human beings. We temper our joy with drops of wine spilled from our cups. Each plague is mentioned. Yeah, right, okay. And the participants that we would all mention in unison. Blood, boils, frogs, hail, vermin, locusts, flies, darkness, cattle disease, slaying of the firstborn. And the second cup of wine, the cup of memory.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has redeemed us and our ancestors from Egypt, and has brought us from the occasion to partake of the matzah and the world.
Then shall we, with a new song and renewed favor, give you thanks once again for our physical deliverance and our spiritual freedom. Great and numerous are the kindnesses which the Lord extended to our fathers. For each of them we offer thanks and humble gratitude.
And any one of these would have been sufficient to show his love for us, his pity and compassion.
With great loving kindness he redeemed us from Egypt, executing judgment upon our oppressors and the idols they worship.
With awesome might he divided the Red Sea, allowing our people safe passage.
With tender care he protected us in the wilderness, granting shelter from the ravages of desert life.
For 40 years he provided for all our needs, sending manna from heaven, food and water to sustain us.
With abundant love he gave us the Sabbath, to afford rest and refreshment for body and soul.
To Mount Sinai he brought us at an hour of spring, and gave us the Torah, the crown of our life.
In triumphant spirit he led us into the land of Israel, which inspired leaders did build the holy temple.
How great and numerous are the kindnesses which the Lord has shown us. For each act of goodness we are abundantly grateful. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who created the fruit of the vine.
And then we would actually drink the second cup of the wine or the juice. The blessing over the matzah. And as it says, at each table the top matzah is broken into pieces. Each participant takes a piece and holds it while reciting the following in unison.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments, and has commanded us to eat matzah.
Eat the bitter herb with matzah and horset. And then we would dip a bit of matzah into the horseradish and then into the horset. And it is very bitter. Now we will eat the bitter herbs combined with the sweet horset. Thus we remember how bitter is slavery and how it can be sweetened by God's redemption.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments, and has commanded us to eat the bitter herbs.
And then after the dinner, the participants would search and then find the hidden matzah. Grace after the meal. The Bible indicates the obligation to say grace. When you have eaten and are satisfied, you shall thank the Lord for your God, for the good land which he has given you. Praise be the Lord our God, Father of all, who sustains the world with goodness and gives us the food of the earth.
We thank you, Lord our God, for the good land which you have given our ancestors, and for bringing us out of the land of Egypt, and redeeming us from the house of bondage. We thank you for the Torah which you have taught us, and for the life of grace and loving kindness which you have graciously bestowed upon us, and for the food we eat, with which you nourish and sustain us at all times.
And then the third cup, the cup of redemption. Bless Jesus. Participants. The biblical text reminds us of God's redemption. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And then we would drink of the third cup. Elijah the prophet. And then all would rise and one person opens the door. You don't have to stand. On this Sedar night, when we pray for freedom, we invoke the memory of the beloved Elijah. May his spirit enter this place and every home at this hour, bringing a message of hope for the future, faith in the goodness of people, and the assurance that freedom will come to all. We now welcome Elijah, beloved guest, at our Sedar as we rise. Blessed it be his presence and inspiration for all of our humanity.
On this night, we remember with reverence those men, women, and children who perished at the hands of tyrants, more wicked than Pharaoh, who was slain our ancestors in Egypt.
Wait a minute, before you start reading, let me make sure I got it. Participant.
At this moment, we remember the 6 million Jews and their communities who were destroyed in Europe by diabolical forces that turned against all that is sacred to Jews, Christians, and all other peoples who hold human life sacred and a manifestation of God.
At this moment, we remember all those who suffered persecution because of their religious and spiritual beliefs. Their witnessing in the darkness of oppression is an inspiration for our faith communities.
We await Elijah's return. We ask God to inspire us by the example of all martyrs for truth and faith, the witnesses to God in darkness and suffering. Out of the depths of affliction, their testimony becomes a song of hope and faith in justice, and of trust in the common bond that unites people. The conclusion of the season, the cups are filled for the fourth and final time. The fourth cup, the cup of hope and freedom.
We will take the cup of wine, the cup of freedom. It is a reminder of freedom, its hopes, struggles, and dreams for so many enslaved nations and individuals. As committed children of God, we are called to witness this precious gift and make it known to all peoples of the earth, those who seek justice, those who lack any rights, and those who fight for freedom. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, creator of fruit of the vine.
And then all would drink the fourth cup of wine. The rites of the Sedar are now concluded in accordance with ancient precept and custom. With the same zeal that we have prepared for this day, may we plan and live our daily lives.
May he inspire us to nobler living and draw us close to him. May the battle cry of all who seek freedom ever ring in our ears.
Amen. Amen. Miss Julie, while we're getting ready to transition, would you
Something? Share your thoughts. Yeah, all right. Well, this very first, when they talked about, when we read Exodus 12:14, I'll just tell you what came to my mind. You shall tell your children on that day, saying, it was because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. And immediately he thought, that applies to my life. And do I tell my children enough about the slavery I was in and how God set me free? Well, I was a slave to alcohol for many, many years, and God sovereignly set me free. My kids need to know that. Yes. They need to know the miracle of the freedom for each of us. So that's what really gets me that. They recall that regularly, their freedom, and yet we don't. I'm speaking me. I don't necessarily speak that to my children all the time. And it's almost like every time we get together, we should share something about our own history. That's what really hit me. Wow. And my grandkids. Wow. And I even actually have something that happened to me a few years ago. I was with one of my grandchildren, and something happened where God told me not to do something, and I didn't listen. And I went ahead and did it, and the consequence was I ended up laid up for 6 months. And so I shared with my grandkids and my kids that I heard his voice say, don't go there. But I didn't listen. And I ended up falling and breaking my pelvis. And I knew that his protection was telling me not to do something. You know? So 2 years later, I was with my granddaughter, and we were in a situation, and and what happened was when I asked the Lord, how did I fall? He told me, you didn't fall, you were pushed. You picked up a hitchhiker, but you went where I wanted you not to go. My God. And so I immediately took with my grandson and myself and just cut ourselves free from anything we picked up. Now my kids are not church, these kids. So, but I shared that issue. A few years later, I was with my granddaughter, and something similar happened, and she kept asking me, are we supposed to be here? And I said, well, the Lord hasn't told me different. And then at one point, he said, go out. So we went out, and she came shortly and sat down next to me and said, Granny, do we need to cut ourselves free? Here's a totally unchurched kid. So telling my history, and it was within a few days that she rededicated her life to the Lord.
That's it.
So, you know, this is what really hit me about this. We've all been in bondage.
Yes.
And we need to celebrate our freedom.
Amen.
And the faithfulness of God. So that's my thoughts.
Amen. That's it. Get it all. Did anybody else want to share anything? Miss Cookie, what we need to do to help you? Okay, come
You know what?
Anybody else want to share anything?
I'll share something.
Here when it says, we will protect the fourth cup of wine, the cup of freedom, it is a reminder of freedom. Its hope struggled free with so many enslaved nations and individuals as committed children of God and cross the witness. This precious gift will make it known to all people in the earth. Those who seek justice, those who lack any rights, and those who fight for freedom. When I was over in Israel, we got close to the border of Syria, and you can hear the gunfire in Syria. We were standing on the mountain, and you could hear it, and all you could think, I mean, we all stretched out our hands and prayed for those being persecuted. But that's how close we were, and we're here, and we hear about it, but we don't really sit down and dwell on it and pray for them like we should. And since I've been home, I've been getting a news broadcast from daily from CNB, Christian. Wait a minute.
TBN?
No, CBN, Christian Broadcast Network. And I don't know if anybody gets their email blasts and stuff. But there's a lot going on in Israel right now. We need to be praying for. I mean, the Palestinians are trying to breach the border into Jerusalem. I was just there a couple of weeks ago for days. We were there for 10 days. And you don't hear it on our media. We as Christians don't realize what Israel is facing and fighting right now. That's all. It just made me think about it because we have our freedoms and we don't often
You actually
realize.
walk the ground.
Yeah, you actually
Where
walk it.
all of this actually took place.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it's still taking place.
And
But
this is 2018.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Anyone else?
You know, it's not only that, it's the persecuted church. You know, I have a friend, he's a pastor over in India, he's got a big ministry over there, and right now, they're killing Christians and burning churches, and I was there, and it seemed very peaceful, but now all of a sudden, you know, this is happening all over the world, we don't hear anything about it.
Yeah, the media doesn't keep us informed, just like China. China is all of a sudden going back the other way. They're pulling down crosses and they're starting to really persecute Christians again. It's very widespread.
North Korea kills Christians too.
It's all over the world. There's more Christians persecuted today than ever in Britain and losing their lives. Losing their lives, you know. So we just don't even think about it most of the time.